everybody? It's your boy Hakeem, aka Ox the Light. Welcome back to the Willie Bobo Show. We waited 53 years. The waiting's finally over. The Knicks have finally won the 2026 NBA championship. I was a year old the last time it happened. And everyone's talking about talent, but we gotta look at chemistry. Look at the guys in this image. That is a Villanova connection that wasn't just a reunion. That was the foundation for a championship run that exposed exactly how fragile a talented team can be under pressure. Because you see, the Spurs were blowing double-digit leads, and the Knicks were only doing one thing, staying locked in. So today, we're going to break down exactly how Nova DNA, combined with veteran grit, finally brought the trophy back to New York. When you think about it, and if you are a basketball mind, not just a fan, but if you're a basketball mind, it's way more than just about the game. It's about the mindset. So let's get into it. So back to this image. Because see, these guys, they're not just teammates. They're actually brothers in arms. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, back when it was Dante DiVincenzo, they played 116 games together at Villanova. They didn't just win in 2016, they secured a second NCAA championship in 2018. So even combined with Mikal Bridges, this is all muscle memory in basketball, people. Because when the game slows down in the finals, players often overthink. Because see, that Nova trio, they didn't have to look for each other. They were executing shared language development that happened years ago. And see, while the young Spurs were trying to manufacture this chemistry, the Knicks were simply recalling it. Now, let's talk about the great collapse of San Antonio. Now, don't just call it a bad series, because this was really a historic implosion. You got to reference, of course, the 29-point halftime lead blown in Game 4, the largest in NBA Finals history. Surpassing the 2008 Lakers, I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they had a 24-point collapse also. You got to think about a young team, lacking chemistry, lacking maturity, and they still finished with an impressive 62-20 season record out in the West, where it's it's lethal. We know that, and we understand also that closing pedigree. They didn't have it. Game 5, 94-92, a Knicks team that thrived on resilience, hustle. This wasn't just poor shooting; it was a psychological ceiling, because they proved that they could reach the mountaintop, but they didn't know how to stay there. They had a young man that was used to winning at all times, man, and right now he's becoming second place. Now, this team is going to be great going forward. Don't you ever get it wrong. This young team is going to be there for at least the next 10 years, as long as they keep Wemby, make sure that Dylan Harper doesn't come out of the game in crucial minutes, keep De'Aaron Fox off the floor. Johnson makes better coaching decisions and actually steps up and, acts like a Spurs coach. Making sure they get a big man sometime in the draft, maybe this draft right here. From what I understand, they're doing everything they can to try to get Lara out of Michigan, 6'3" cat from Spain. 7'3" cat from Spain. They just have to learn how to become men. And that is just going to take experience, right? Because I think that they focused more when they had Oklahoma City as their opponent versus the Knicks. I don't know if they thought that the Knicks weren't going to be the type of team that could beat them. Because on paper, if you look at it, the Spurs should have killed the Knicks. Real talk, they're a much better team than the Knicks. But these other little factors that stand in the way of them just goes to show you have grown man strength versus young man strength. You know, you have basketball IQ that's not broken under pressure versus basketball IQ that disappears in crucial moments. So you can't really be mad at this team. The coaching staff, yes, you can be mad at. All the official shit and all that, yo, we get it. There were some terrible calls, but it went both ways, man. But the coaching staff of the San Antonio Spurs needs to be reckoned with. Mitch Johnson needs to be pulled in and go through all of the times that he got out coached in the series because Mike Brown, he ran circles around his ass, man. And I understand, first year coach, most people didn't expect him to be here. But if you go back to the beginning of the season, I did talk about that the San Antonio Spurs will be representing the West. I called it, okay? But what we saw was a heartbreaking meltdown by some children, comparatively, right, to most NBA teams. The Michigan Wolverines, okay, they had a team that was the same age as the San Antonio Spurs. And I need you to think about that in context. All right, these are young kids still, man, and big up to them. They're gonna be back. I'm gonna enjoy it. You know, not a Spurs fan, but I'm not a Spurs hater. I enjoy good basketball, and I love it when the San Antonio community does have something to celebrate. So yo, don't put your heads down, guys. Good job, good job. Way the ball. You'll be back. Stay tuned. So I want to talk about the front office and then the coaching. You know, Mitch Johnson. You know, this situation. You know, he deserves credit for his 62-win season. But as I was just talking about in the previous segment, that you know, the playoffs really did expose a lack of tactical flexibility under pressure. That's something all coaches have got to learn, especially you know where he is. And you know, the pundits are going to be looking at the Spurs' inability to hold leads as a coaching fundamental issue. I'm looking at it as that, you know. And then you got the Wemby window, right? Victor Wembanyama, this undisputed priority. He's eligible for a 5-year, $251 million rookie extension this summer. Small market team, man. And with the draft, you know, they're looking at with a 20th pick. You know, they don't need a savior. They just need somebody that's going to give them a little more floor space, right? The lead shooters, you know, who can clear the lane for Wemby. A 3-and-D guy, you know, to add to the rest of them. The crossroads really, as we know, is going to be De'Aaron Fox, right? But this shouldn't be a no-brainer. It really shouldn't. Because in the finals, compared with this massive contract, that makes him an eventual trade candidate to open up cap space so that the young core, speaking of Castle, speaking of Harper, that makes, you know, them able to sign better rookie deals. Again, maybe work some free agency, bring in some veterans that can actually, you know, help them out. Because I think that Harrison Barnes was a veteran that should have been playing ball, you know, over De'Aaron Fox. You know what I mean? You got Mason Plumlee. So I'm not sure as to why these veterans weren't in for at least 9 minutes, you know, per game, maybe 9 minutes a half, you know, give them 18 total minutes, 18, 20 total minutes to settle things down, you know, when it got a little rough. But hey, we can all talk this, you know, Saturday afternoon quarterback type thing, you know, when it comes down to basketball. But I mean, some of these things that we were looking at, man, was stuff that, you know, you teach kids at the YMCA. So I'm not sure as to where the disconnect happened, but they have some major decisions to make in the upcoming years when it comes down to signing these kids and getting big contracts, you know, specialized where they can handle it. Not that RC Buford doesn't have the money, but again, you're talking about a small money team. So collective bargaining agreement is going to help them out. You know, everybody's going to want to come play here. That's another thing. You know what I mean? Regardless of what people may think of San Antonio, it's not the same way that it was when they first won a title, right? So it has grown. There's a lot more here for a younger mind, and what you should be focused on basketball anyway. So, you know, with that front office, you know, RC Buford's got major decisions to make. They have to, you know, think about player personnel that's going to be able to get them over the hump so they don't have these meltdowns of 29-point leads blown, being up on a veteran team that has not the skill package whatsoever to deal with them. When that happens, the rings will be able to be collected again. So, we got to refer to, the championship imagery right here. The title that was won this year by the New York Knicks, it's not just about a ring. It's about ending the 73 drought. 53 years, man. Jalen Brunson winning the MVP, scored 45 points in the clincher, a performance for the ages. OG Anunoby, defensive versatility. Karl Anthony Towns, spacing the floor. That was a finals piece that turned a good team into a legendary team. The Knicks only won because they're dogs. And they played like New York Knicks. There's a culture built on grit and perfectly matched the atmosphere of Madison Square Garden, the city, the East Coast, when it comes down to the sport of basketball. I think if I could relate a team to this team, it would be the Cardiac Pack. A team that nobody expected to be there. They weren't really uber talented, right? They had some pieces. They had some dogs. And they didn't quit for shit. They were undersized. If you look at the Knicks compared to the San Antonio Spurs, they are undersized. Okay? They had one good player that could really light it up. So did the Pack. They had a couple of big men that could really contribute at the right moments. So did the Pack. They had a coach that nobody really believed in. Because you got to look at it. Everybody loves and respects Mike Brown. You got to. He's a great guy. But nobody expected Mike Brown to come to New York and really do this, except for hopeful New Yorkers, New York fans. But what he did, really, it's amazing. There's a little bit of Thibodeau still remaining on this team. I will also agree with that, as a lot of people have talked about, because of the grit, right? Mike Brown does teach more of a finesse game, but he's becoming more of a East Coast physical basketball coach, considering that he was in the West for a while, even though we know that he was, with Cleveland and so on. Big up. Good job, Mike. Also having a black man win a title. Good job, Mike. This is big for us. This is big for the city. This is good for basketball. This is wonderful for everybody involved. And even for the Spurs that did lose, I love the way that the fans were still out last night, celebrating, blowing horns, having a good time, because you should. The future is very bright for you. But for today and the next 364 days, the New York Knicks are the world champion of the NBA. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you want to be on the show, you can check me out at thewillyboboshow@gmail.com. Get at your man on Facebook at Hakeem Green, and also you can find me on TikTok and Instagram, and make sure you check out the album that's been rolling and keeps rolling, Audio Coke. Willie Ware on deck for all of y'all. Stay tuned. Next time, we're going to talk about some mind states. It's coming really right around the corner. Stay tuned. Peace.